Welcome to Conversations with the Modern Girl, the podcast hosted by myself, Shamika Patterson, the guru of mental health and well-being. Join me as we embark on a journey of exploration and discovery, as we deepen our thoughts, as we discuss topics that affect our community. I coined myself the queen of randomly thinking, and as I'm randomly thinking and having these discussions in these podcast episodes, I invite you to join me with these thought-provoking discussions on a wide range of subjects, from lifestyle trends to the culture of the Black church, and also discussing some obstacles that we face in middle-class America, also to the intersection of mental health and well-being. Be prepared to be inspired, challenged, and empowered as we engage in meaningful conversations that aim to spark positive change and personal growth. Get ready to expand your horizons and enhance your understanding of these important issues in Conversations with the Modern Girl. Thank you for joining me today for today's conversation. Today, I'm just talking about who I am, how I got here, what was my why, stuff like that, just to give my listeners a little snippet of who I am. And so, I started Modern Girl. It was first a vision back in 2014. 2014, I was living in a new city. I had two small children that were under the age of 5. And my life routine at the time, I had recently, left a job and had moved to this new city with my husband. His job would move him often. So we moved kind of frequently. And so it would be difficult sometimes to maintain a job consistently because we would move. So I was not working at the time. And so my routine consisted of me getting up in the morning, taking the kids to daycare, going to go work out, coming home, doing things around the house, whether it was cooking, cleaning, whatever, etc. That's what I was doing. And just trying to figure out life, just trying to figure out what was next for me, because I knew there was more to my life than just being in that role that I was currently in. And so during that process of that span of time that I was trying to figure this out, I went to a very dark place. I battled depression and anxiety in this space because I was away from my family. I was not making the moves that I wanted to in my career. I was, a mom, probably still had some postpartum. I don't know, but I was not in the best place mentally. And so working out was helping me. Working out, being outside was helping me keep myself in a healthy space. And as I was praying and meditating and whatnot, I started to think, how many other people have felt like this or have been in this position, or just overall have felt the feeling of being stuck, like stagnant, like there's something else that should be going on in my life and I just can't put my finger on it. I just don't know. It seems like whenever I think I'm gonna catch a break, I don't. Or when things seem to be going good for me, something happens and I fall off track. Whatever the scenario, I just wondered how many other people felt like that. Particularly, I was thinking about women. Because we wear so many different hats. We feel we are something for everyone. We fill our days catering to, loving on, showing up for our family, our friends, our jobs, organizations, you name it. We pour from an empty cup often, and rarely is anyone really pouring back into us. And so through this thought process of me, thinking about these things, I thought about, I wish it was a place or something that actually celebrated women. And I'm not just talking about like Mother's Day or your birthday, but something that women can go to and feel liberated, feel appreciated, feel seen, heard, and loved on, and walk away with their cup full. So this thought came to my mind because we live in this modern world where things are forever changing, rapidly changing, things do. And so you always have to be modern and consistent with the times. So that's why I chose the word modern, because whatever I did, I wanted it to always be right, right for the present time, modern. And then girl was this cliche or this catchphrase that we say when we talk to our homegirls, our best friends, or, we use the word girl, and I realized that even in women's older age, they still will call their friends girl. Girl, listen, or whatever, what's up, what's going on, girl, you're not going to believe what happened. A child, let me tell you. Any of those types of phrases. So I summed it up to girl. And so modern girl. And modern girl can be anyone, because modern girl represents fierceless. It represents education. It represents vulnerability. It represents taking charge of your life, basically. It represents living life out loud. It represents well-being, being in a place where you're comfortable, healthy, and happy, whatever that looks like for you, right? So I wanted to have this luncheon to celebrate women, for them to come and be celebrated and feel good in this space. Now, mind you, I was not working at the time. And this was this idea that came up that I wanted to do. And I set out on this venture to do that. And I have this saying that I, learned later on in life after life experiences, that if it's God's will, it's his bill. If it is God's will, it's his bill. And at the time, I didn't know that. I didn't realize that. I just was walking blind faith. That's what I was doing. And so I went to Georgia to establish this conference or luncheon. It was really a luncheon. The first one was a luncheon. And I made these appointments prior to going to Georgia. And I set up these appointments with people with different venues, decorations, floor arrangements, food, you name it. I had these appointments set up to meet these people on this particular Saturday. So I traveled over, had these appointments. I did not have the money to get these people, but you would not know it with me standing there talking to them. And I was a boss, I was a boss. And I'm not saying a boss as in I was ugly or diva acting. No, I mean that I was sure what I wanted. I was, consistent with my thought process of what we wanted to carry out. And, I was picking and choosing and doing what I needed to do to make this come into fruition, right? And so I walked away from those different meetings that day. And guess what? By the time I got back on the road and traveled back to my home, those deposits were made and things were secure, right? Good. So that happened. That gave me the extra push that I needed to keep going. With it happening like that, that secured my faith that, okay, I'm moving in the right direction and this is something that I must do. So from there, I started putting everything together, the topics, the subject matters, everything, the layout, the orchestrating, the facilitate, everything, the thought process. I remember I met with this guy. When you're doing things that you're called to do, certain people come along the way, people that it could be complete strangers. And you end up befriending them or getting into some type of conversation with them, and they end up helping you in some type of way. And I met with this guy, and he was telling me about carrying out the vision or carrying out this process of doing this conference. And as I was going through my idea with him, he was like, wait, you're doing all of this yourself? And I was like, yeah. He was like, so you're facilitating, you're organizing, you're facilitating You are carrying out, you're making these contacts, you are doing all of this stuff by yourself. He's like, that's like 6, 7 jobs within that whole process. And I was like, yeah, I'm doing. He was like, that is so talented. That's a gift to be able to do that. And I was like, well, yeah, it is. And it is a gift. It is a gift. And I have accepted the fact that that is one of the gifts that I have, that I'm able to organize, facilitate, carry out, package, and deliver things and execute it in an excellent way. That's a gift that I have and I'm happy about. It's a lot of work, but I am able to do those things. So as I was finishing up this process to put on this luncheon, things, came together so wonderfully. I mean, it was just a beautiful concept, a beautiful day. It was just, it carried out, and I had so much support from my friends and my family, and people showed up. And I wanted to create this space where we not only were pouring into these women, but I also wanted to give them the space to talk themselves and to also address subject matters that are not always discussed in our communities, right? So it wasn't just one of these, you show up to an event, empowerment, women's conference, luncheon, you name it, and you're sitting at the table, people not really even talking to you, or the presenter gets up and feeds you their story, but never really gives you the tools or what you need to make things move and shake for yourself. Nah, this ain't what Martin Girl is. Mean girl activity. No, that's not even the energy we're putting off. So in this space, we talked about our aspirations, our dreams. We learned from each other, and we kind of laid the cards on the table of life. And one of the subject matters one of the topics I had was the unhappily ever after. And that was kind of like the segment where we talked about how things don't always go as planned in life. Ooh, people love that, because we are trained to think that, things are supposed to go a certain way, but nobody talks about the ugly, right? The ugly of what happens in life. Sometimes you're going to get divorced. You're going to lose your parents, at some point in your life. Sometimes your child doesn't turn out, to be who you had wanted and planned for them to be. Hey, you might have got locked up at some point in life, and it disrupted your entire life. There are so many things that can happen in life, but you can pick yourself up and keep moving forward, or you can rally around others that understand that, and they can foster you and love on you and push you in a direction that you need to go to be empowered, so things like that. Not to get so far off into that topic, but things like that's what we kind of, talked about or set the atmosphere for. It never was about a money grab for me. And I say that because I would, put forth the money for these events. And it was never about, oh, how much money am I going to make? Or it was never about that. Because when you're doing what you're supposed to do, the reward is not always monetary. Now, we do like money. We all do. But that was never my goal, and it's still not my goal. But this conference, we had it. It was wonderful. After that conference, it evolved to another one, and another one. I say conference because the first one in 2015 really was a luncheon. It was a luncheon. And then every year after that, it became a conference, and it became bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And it was amazing. It was amazing to see the growth. It was amazing to see the growth within myself. And it was so encouraging and inspiring to have these women around you and to be able to celebrate them and give them this space to be themselves, and to also have subject matters presented to them on topics that were relatable, So it was a great experience. The last conference I had was in 2018. I had the conference in 2018. By this time, the conferences were so big that I would have CEUs attached to them, continuing education units for social workers, because I myself am a licensed social worker. And as a licensed clinician, we have to have, continuing education credits in order to keep our license valid. So, okay. I decided somewhere along the way, we're going to start getting CEUs for this, because we do talk a lot about a lot of subject matter that does kind of gear towards my profession of being a social worker, where we are looking at well-being. We're talking about mental health. We're talking about the health disparities within our community. So why not attach some CEUs to this? So that's what I did. So in 2018, we had this conference, and we had relationships with the Department of Health and Human Services that by this time was giving us grant money. We had Gilead Pharmaceuticals that was giving us HIV/AIDS awareness education. We had connections with Walgreens. We had connections with the local parks and rec. We had a great thing going. And by this time, I would have some celebrities to come. Yeah, your girl was doing the thing, and it was wonderful. But that last conference that I had in 2018 was focused on the metamorphosis. And we know that a metamorphosis is a change process. It's a change process. And I tell people, if you're not evolving and if you're not changing, you're not living to your fullest potential. Yeah. You should not be the same person you was in 97. You should not be the same person you was in 2017. You should not be the same person you were last year, because as life proceeds to move forward, so should you. Take advantage of every moment to be a better you and to discover who you are, to get to the place to where you want to be as a person, as an individual. I always say we have three faces that we present. It's who we present ourselves as to others, what people think of us. That's one face. Number two is who we really are deep down the inside, who we really are. And then the third is who we want to be. And that's what I mean when we say we should constantly be evolving to get to that person that you want to be. So I was going through this change process. A week after I had wrapped that conference in 2018, my grandmother passed. That broke my heart in a zillion pieces. The spark, the drive that I had to continue to do Martin Girl conferences died. I just didn't have it in me. I felt terrible because of my faithful following. They were wanting a conference and needing a conference, and I just could not deliver. I could not deliver. And so that was 2018. So 2019, of course, I couldn't. 2020, I thought about it. I started making some contacts. Couldn't do it because COVID took place. So that's when I bought the podcast equipment. I thought, okay, so if I don't do the conference, let me do the podcast. Podcasts had been something that had been on my mind. I had no idea how to set this stuff up, what to do or anything, but I was determined to be obedient and, try to take the time to learn how to do it. You would think during COVID, I would have deep dove into this and really been into it. She didn't do it. I think I was still like in a space where I just couldn't connect the dots. I just didn't have the willingness to move forward in that aspect. So I looked at other ways, to try to put Martin Girl out there with the community, with helping, with, filling in, places and volunteering and things like that. Still didn't know, what I was going to do next with Martin Girl. So that was 2020. We ended up moving to Kansas in 2020 in the middle of COVID. Go figure, y'all, you just don't know. So we moved to Kansas. I got to Kansas. Of course, when you go to a new city, new place, you got to set down roots. You got to learn people. And we were there for a few years. I started working on another conference. And I flew to Hilton Head because that was the place I was going to have this conference at. Flew to Hilton Head, made all these arrangements, signed contracts. Okay, we're going to work this out. Got my speakers and all together. Started pushing for this the best that I could. Things did not go as planned. Ticket sales were not doing as I had expected. And I was in a place again. I was in a spot again. I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And so in the midst of that, I was like, I don't know how this is going to play out. I'm probably going to have to pull the plug, but something would not let me pull the plug. Something would not let me just give up on it. So I pushed it all the way to the end, right? I pushed it all the way to the end, and then a hurricane came. A hurricane came and disrupted it all, and we ended up canceling. And I felt like, that was a test for me to see how far I would go to complete the will of the Lord. I really feel like that, because all the odds was against me. Oh my goodness. All the odds was against me, but I did not hear stop. I did not hear don't do it. I just kept pushing forward. Believing that things were going to work out for me in that, space. It was hard to watch, but I just kept believing it's going to work out. I just knew it was going to work out. So it did work out, because the storm came and we ended up having to cancel this conference. And I could go all into detail about that, but no, that was kind of like I said in the last podcast about being under submission. I was under submission. I was being obedient, trying to carry out that plan. And I thought about how Abraham was told to sacrifice Isaac, right? And, I know he loved his child dearly, and, but he didn't hesitate to obey God. And that's how it was. Now, by no means am I comparing this conference to a child, but I'm saying that I was obedient in blind faith enough that I was pushing forward and carrying out this conference, because that's what I was told to do by God. By any means necessary, I was going to carry it out. And I didn't know what the expectation was going to be, or the outcome was going to be on the other side, because I knew I was in the red financially. I mean, in the red so much and so that I didn't even want to tell Mr. Patterson, but I was in the red, but I was still being obedient. And so I was obeying, and I submitted to what the Lord had instructed me to do. And then at the turn of events, when I thought, oh crap, it's going down, I'm just going to have to eat this debt, a hurricane came and erased that debt for me. It got me out of my contract, and it showed me that as long as you trust God, he's going to always have your back. He's going to always make sure he takes care of his people. And so it taught me that submission required humility and the willingness to trust God's sovereignty, even when we don't understand his ways. That's what I learned from that. And in that metamorphosis, that change process, I realized that me putting on conferences was a part of my past. Not saying that I won't ever revisit that again, but in this season, I am more so prone to be invited to speak at conferences and whatnot now. And I feel like that's a second fold to what Martin Girl is, because right now we're moving in the direction of focusing on wellness, Martin Girl Wellness, MGM Wellness, where we're focusing more so on not just women, but all people. The wellness and well-being of all people. That's just, where we're growing at now. And it's growing by leaps and bounds. And my goal is to effect change in individuals, to not only see themselves for who they are, but to be comfortable, healthy, and happy. That's that well-being, and understanding and knowing what it takes to be who they are, and to research and find for themselves who they plan to be, doing some soul searching there to understand who it is that you want to become, is what I mean when I say that. And it sounds like a lot of work, and it is. Self-discovery is a lot of work. That's only one piece of what, the goal is now, because there are other pieces are still to educate people on subject matters that are not often discussed, to always push the narrative of our health disparities that affect our community, the Black community, to educate the Black community, to educate us, to push forward and to promote Black excellence. And, that can look different for everyone. It's not just about this high class Black family. No, Black excellence is having these excellent talents that you may have, these gifts that you have, pushing it, having it, supporting our brothers and our sisters in whatever it is that they're doing genuinely. Because we have a lot of people out there that's not genuinely doing things, just out there doing stuff for a money grab or a quick come up, which is oppressing our people and taking advantage of our people. And I'm not in agreement with that. But that's another conversation for another day. But so in all that I've just shared, that is pretty much how Martin Girl started and what we are doing now. And then here we are with this podcast. This podcast really pushed forward once I experienced this setback of like not being employed. And I just jumped on my podcast. I had been dabbling with trying to figure out how to work it, but never really put anything out there. But I sat down, I figured it out, I recorded it, and I pushed it out there. And I said, I'm diving out the deep end. Wherever it takes me, that's where I'm going. So that's how we got here. But I'm from a small town girl from Georgia. I'm the middle child of two. I have an older sister and a baby sister. My baby sister was like my first baby. My older sister and I are 2 years apart, and we're like, yin and yang in some aspects. And we are a close-knit family. We love on each other, and they support me in all that I do. My mom, I grew up in a single family home. I had a fairly great childhood. I came from a good home, good people, had a good upbringing, a fun upbringing. And my mom, my grandmother raised me. I lacked nothing. There was always prayer, joy, and peace in my home. I try to reciprocate that in my own home now. I try to continue to have joy, peace, and love in my home overflowing, just like the one that I grew up in. And in this arena of pushing Martin Girl or being, MGM Wellness, that's my goal, is to foster that into other people, to push that out there into other people and help them develop a good, comfortable space for themselves. We go through a lot in life, and it should be tools there to help us navigate different things in life. And that's the goal of Martin Girl or MGM Wellness, is to supply these tools to people so they could live their best life. He or she can live their best life. So that's basically, what Martin Girl is, what it started to be, what we're working on. And I'm just thrilled to see where we go from here. I'm really thrilled to see where we go from here and how things play out. I ask you to share, to like and subscribe to the podcast, share the podcast with your friends. Let's just see where it takes us. I'm open, to conversation. Hit me up, email me, find me on social media. It's Martin Girl on social media. Send me a message. I'm willing to work with you. I'm great and honored that you took the time to listen to my podcast today. Until we chat again, out. Thank you to all the listeners out there. I ask you to please go to my YouTube page and like and subscribe to Conversations with the Martin Girl. Also, take the time to follow me on my social handles. Instagram is Martin Girl Movement. Facebook, same Martin Girl Movement. Thank you.